Alright, so lots of you might have heard of this term SQL injection, right? But if I ask you to build a vulnerable backend from scratch and perform some malicious SQL injections to it, so will you be able to do it? So yeah, if your answer is yes, then it's pretty cool, good for you. But if you somehow doubt yourself that you're not able to do it completely from scratch, you don't know how to exactly do it practically, so in this video I'm going to show you exactly how SQL injection works and how hackers would attack into your system via SQL injection if you have written some vulnerable code. Alright, so now without any further ado, let's start. And the very first step would be let's make a vulnerable backend. Alright, so by the way, I'm going to use the tech stack I'm going to use for making this backend would be express.js and along with Nodejs, and yeah, just simple JavaScript I'm going to use. If you like, feel free to use TypeScript or any other language if you want. So yeah, let's go with these for this particular tutorial. And by the way guys, whatever we are doing in this particular video and all the code and everything is over here, SQL injection, this particular GitHub repository. So yeah, just do check it out in the description. I'm going to attach all the links and everything in there, so just do check it out. So yeah, I'm going to deploy this particular backend as well, and the deployed link is this, that is play-sqlinjection.versal.app. Go check out the description, you'll find everything. Alright, so first of all, let's make that vulnerable backend. Okay, I'm going to share you guys that how will you make your backend in such a way that a SQL injection will properly work, because yeah, nowadays most of the systems we are using to prevent SQL injection to happen, we are using some database layers, and they are ORMs and ODMs, and if you are not aware of these terms, so don't worry, I really hope and believe you are aware of the terms associated to them, and they are for ODM. Okay, for ODM you have already used Mongoose. If you have ever worked with MongoDB, all right, so you have used Mongoose. Okay, you never wrote any direct SQL query like select or insert into, likewise you have simply queried like this, like db dot, for creating you have written add or update or likewise. So that's why the code bases like these, SQL injection doesn't work. So what is the vulnerability? Which code you will say that okay, this code is vulnerable and SQL injection is easily can happen? So I'm going to share you guys that in this video. And yeah, talking about ORM, so yeah, you have used Prisma. All right, I really hope and believe if you are using PostgreSQL, all right, if you're using PostgreSQL, so you might have used Prisma for your ORM. Okay, and if you're using MongoDB, you might have so you definitely would use the Mongoose as the ODM. all right, so first of all, let's make the vulnerable backend. Okay, yeah, I have fired up my terminal. Okay, so just quickly open up your terminal and let's simply just create a simple directory as SQL injection backend. All right, and move to the directory. All right, and then okay, let's really quickly fire up the Visual Studio, the core. Let's fire up the core editor in this particular path. So yeah, let's initialize a empty express application. All right, so the command is npm init -y. All right, let's initialize the package.json file, and here we go, we have our index.js file, and inside this particular file we are going to write our complete backend logic. All right, it's obviously always a good practice to keep all these files, git ignore, and inside it put the node modules and folder, I guess so, VS Code. Yeah, so yeah, you're good to go now. All right, so now let's start installing all the dependencies, and majorly we need the express dependency first of all. So let's install this npm I express. All right, after installing the dependency, let's start writing the normal boilerplate code for an express backend. So let's run this server and let's check whether it's running or not. I would go for node index.js. Yeah, you'll be able to see okay, the server is up. Yeah, in 3000 port. Okay, server is up and running. Yeah, everything looks good, I guess. All right, so let me create a env sample keeping your database URL. all right, the .env file, the git ignore should contain that .env file, of course. All right, so by this point I would love to go to neon.com, and let me just create a database and get the URL from that. All right. So I would urge you guys as well to go to the Neon console and grab your database URL from there. So as you can see, I've created this SQL injection DB a database, and from here, as you can see, by clicking this connect, I'll be getting my database URL from here. So just my Postgres database URL. So make sure you copy this and make sure you create a database URL variable in your .env file and just paste that URL into your .env file. All right. So yeah, we are done with the basic Express backend setup, and now it's time to install another dependency to connect our backend to the database. So yeah, that is PG. Okay. Yeah, basically that's a Postgres. It's basically setting Postgres and its client for that, and also we need .env. All right, for the for fetching the environment variable from the .env file to our code base. All right, we'll require the .env here. Basically this .env and config like this. Okay, and let's basically by installing this PG, basically we are installing the client for for our server, for our backend to connect with the PostgreSQL database. All right, so let's import that client over here. That is client. All right, and let's require that from PG. Now let's require the database URL. Okay, that will do as process.env.database URL. Yeah. All right, so now let's go on and create a new PostgreSQL client over here. So we will simply name it PGC. Okay, just feel free to give it any name you want. All right, this is new client. All right, and make sure you give the database URL over here. Yeah, so yeah, that's it. Or you can simply do this process.env here, process.env.database URL. Okay, you can remove this particular thing over here. Yeah, I guess everything is cool. Just one more sentence that you have to write, that is use this PGC and now finally connect to your database. Okay, this is the step you need to do. All right, so now okay, before moving any further, the schema for our this particular application, it's going to be quite simple because we are just testing and just playing around. So yeah, let's just keep the tables. Let's just keep a users table. Okay, a users table, and inside it the attributes will be the username and password. Yeah, that's it. In order to do this, let me write the SQL query for that in this. Yeah, obviously if you're in this Neon console, if you're in neon.com and if you're into your project, okay, you'll be seeing here SQL editor over here. So you can simply come over here and write all your basically you can write your SQL queries over here and perform operations. All right. Maybe we can write this with the help of using AI. So I would simply give it that, okay, generate table users, keep username, simply just username and password, and that's it. Go ahead and run this particular query, and you'll be able to see. Yeah, as you can see clearly that the statement executed successfully. You can go to this table section over here, and you'll be able to see there are you can clearly see that there is a users table, and inside it the attributes are username and the password. Now let's maybe in a slash data route. Okay, let's simply for testing that whether our backend is connected to our database or not. So let's create a simple route as recres. Okay, simple slash data route. I would say the slash data route. This particular route will obviously, as the name suggests, it will simply just get the users, or you can simply write users as well. Okay, app.get users. Okay, and we'll return the users data over here. Okay, so what I'll do is just simply write const response, just the response, and we have to await it, and to do await we need to make this function as async function. Yeah, await PGC query. All right, I'm giving the query. And so now here's the thing I need to share with you guys, that this kind of syntax, okay, this kind of particular if you'll ask me that what are all those code bases, by looking, the particular attacker / hacker would know that this particular code base is, or this particular system / server is vulnerable. So any backend and in which the SQL query are just simply written in their raw form, okay, like this, select ID, or select username and password from users. So likewise, okay, any backend in which raw SQL queries are written and without any ORM or ODM layer, so those code bases and servers are considered as a vulnerable server, right? So this is an example of a vulnerable backend. Instead of username and password, you can like simply write select asterisk from users. Okay, let's analyze that what this data is coming. Okay, so I would simply send this response, just send this response to this users, and yeah, I hope so everything is cool. Let's run this. Okay, let's run this, and I don't know what this came. Just say if you want current behavior. Okay, I think everything is working fine. Let's see if the server is up, and by going to /users, yeah, I'll be able to see a lot came. Okay, a lot came, but I don't need all these. I just need the data. So I guess this is the rows. These are the rows, I guess, as you can see clearly. Okay, so I guess so as you can see, there are two data here. That is the row count. First is the row count, that obviously how much rows and how much data is available over there, and these are the rows. So I feel I need the rows only. Okay, so let's update our backend, update our code, and simply we'll res.json. Basically we are sending the dot rows, if I'm not wrong. Yeah, as you can see, we are sending the dot rows array actually. Okay, maybe let's refresh, and yeah, as you can see, like obviously currently we don't have any data in our database. As you can see, our database is empty, so that's why there's an empty array displayed over here, which is fine. Everything is working. But now after we will add basically we are going to add a post route over here. Okay, app.post. Basically what this post endpoint will do, obviously it will add some particular data in our database. Okay, so let's make this real quick. Okay, before that, obviously, let us write the raw SQL query over here first of all, by giving the templating strings. So yeah, we have to add the data. Okay, yeah, into obviously the name of the table. Okay, what are all the fields you want to insert in? So I want to insert into password, username and password, and values. And these will be the values. Okay, username and the password, these are the values. So now here's the thing, we have to import those strings. So inside a single code, we'll add our username first of all. Okay, and then inside a single code, we'll add the password. All right, I hope this is crystal clear. Now yeah, it's time to write the response here, and let's call the PGC query, and let's give a SQL query. All right, and yeah, here we go. Yeah, we can, or basically if you want to see, so we can simply res.json the response over here, but you can simply, or instead of this response, you can simply type in that okay, the user is added and like that. Okay, but yeah, it's cool. All right, so I guess everything is okay. Now let's test this. Okay, feel free to use tools such as Postman and all, but yeah, Requestly, Postman and all, but yeah, I'm going to use curl over here. Yeah, let's curl. First of all, let's check that the server is running or not. HTTP, and yeah, it's running in the port 3000. Okay, localhost 3000, and yeah, as you can see, the message came, server is up and running. Okay, now that we know that, okay, definitely we have a post endpoint obviously at the /add. We have a /add post endpoint. So let's make a post request over there to localhost 3000 obviously, and yeah, into the /endpoint. Okay, and now obviously, like, I hope guys the syntax of this. It's we have to write a backslash, and then we have to start writing our code from a new line. Okay, just for a better readability, feel free to write the command in a single line as well. It's up to you. All right, so yeah, let's give the header first of all in the content JSON, and yeah, now it's basically time for the data. So I'm gonna give the username. Okay, this time make sure to give this single slash outside. This time make sure to give the single inverted commas outside, and then inside use double inverted. Okay, so in the username field, I'm gonna give, say for example, ShubhDEVs, and say ShubhDEVs, and password, let us give my top secret password, just the password one, yeah, like that. Okay, I hope so this is cool. And if I hit enter, it'll say can't connect to this. So like I'm able to find what went wrong. So basically I didn't awaited this particular response. So yeah, make sure you don't do all these just little bit mistakes. So our server is up. Let's make a call. Let's make a get request to the user's endpoint this time. All right, so yeah, you'll be able to see there comes an empty array because there's no such data in our database. And yeah, now it's basically time to finally make the post request and hit enter. And yeah, you'll be able to see that all. And you, okay, if you'll ask why all these jargon came, because if you remember, we did this. Okay, we directly send the complete response body to into the response. So that's why all these came. But if you want to just log a specific field, so feel free to do it. Okay, but yeah, we are fine. Okay, let's basically check that whether any data inserted or not. So let's curl to this user's endpoint again, and yeah, you'll be able to see that okay, the ShubhDEVs data and the password is now into it. All right, let's check it one more time over here to this. Yeah, server is up and running. If you check to the /users endpoint, you'll be able to see okay, we have one data inserted. And also in the neon console, if you just go and refresh over here, just switch tabs, okay, and you'll be able to see the ShubhDEVs and the password is here. Okay, let's add some more password. Okay, honestly, and password 2, and again now if you'll refresh, you'll be able to see the ShubhDEVs returns data is now into our database. So yeah, for now everything is working fine. Okay, we are able to connect our server to the database, and we are able to interact with our database by fetching data and by inserting data. All right, now it's time to first of all deploy this backend. Okay, so I'll simply do all those GitHub initialization and deploying this to Vercel, and then let us do some malicious SQL injection into the production database. All right, guys. So now it's time to perform the those malicious SQL injection to the server. This is the URL. This particular backend is deployed. All right. So yeah, you can find the URL and everything in the description as well. You can play around with this. All right, if you want, like, because as you know, this is deployed. Okay. So this is live. If you want, you can play around with this, but yeah, you deploy it by yourself. All right, and then try to play this SQL injections in your deployed server, right? But if you want to play around with this, okay, you can, but maybe sooner or later I will disconnect this database. Okay, let's get right into it. Let's now understand this, and let's do some malicious SQL injection from a perspective of a hacker. The very first thing, they have the access of, maybe they have the access of your code base, right? Now you'll say how. See, now there's this term called open source. Obviously this particular code, this particular server, maybe just imagine this is your server, and your server, your code base is open sourced, right? So by this, it means your server, your whatever the code of your application is publicly available, and it is publicly live. All right, anybody can come over platforms such as GitLab and etc., and anybody can watch your code. All right, so now the hacker has the access of your code base. Okay, the attacker will look at the vulnerable SQL query, the syntax you have written. See, in platforms like in code like this, where you have written raw SQL query and injected your, like, whatever the username is coming from the body, you just inserted it into this SQL statement. Whatever the password is coming, you just inserted in this. You have exposed this endpoint. Obviously this is a post request. You have exposed this endpoint, and obviously anybody can make a malicious post request to this particular /endpoint, okay, and perform some malicious SQL query. All right, how that person is going to do it, so let me show you that. Feel free to use platforms such as Postman and maybe Requestly and like something like that, but okay, we are going to use curl. Okay, let me open up my terminal. All right, now first of all, let's curl and look that okay, whether the deployed link is okay, everything is working or not. So play SQL injection dot vercel.app. So I've curled into, and into the /get endpoint, and you can see the server is up and running. Let's go and fetch the data. I guess data endpoint is not there. Yeah. We indeed have a user's endpoint. Okay. Like how would the attacker will know that okay we have a slash users endpoint or slash e endpoint and etc etc. So yeah, as I said earlier that the attacker can read your code base and yeah they can understand okay there is a slash users endpoint, there is a slash add post request endpoint, and so on and so forth. And even before that, if you say that how will that particular user is going to access the deployed link, okay, so it's pretty obvious, right? Because see, if I go to like any website, right, if I go to say for example x.com, okay, so let me open up the networks tab. All right, let me open up the networks tab, and if I just maybe click anything, okay, let's click anything, this, right? Let's maybe let's go for this following section. You'll be able to see that okay this particular request went out and this is the link. See, I easily I have the access of the link, right? This is the backend link, as you can see. So this is the thing, and likewise there are lots and lots of multiple ways the user can get your link, the attacker can get your backend link, and this was one of the easiest way. All right, so yeah, they have the access of your link, right, of your backend URL. There aren't any data in our database now. Obviously I have deployed a completely empty database. So yeah, obviously the the array is empty now. So let us add some data. All right, data. So they'll make some post requests, right? Strong password. Let's hit enter, and yeah, you'll be able to see yeah, lots and lots of thing came. Let us curl to the users. All right. Let's check that whether our data is inserting or not, and yeah, as you can see, indeed it is. Okay, we have obviously we have our data. Okay, we have our data inserted into the database, into the production database. All right, so yeah, let's go to let's search for it. So yeah, you can see ShubhDEVs production and the strong and the password. All right, so yeah, we are able to insert some data. Right now, our real task is to perform some malicious SQL injections. All right, how will you do SQL injection? This is the whole main thing. The hacker will observe that okay, there is one very vulnerable line of code there's into this particular code base, and that is this line number, obviously this line number 26, that is this SQL query. So as you can clearly see, there's this slash at post request. All right, so what this particular endpoint is doing, this particular, like from the body, all right, from the body, this particular endpoint is fetching the username. All right, the username, and just understand that the username is a complete normal string. All right, also the password, and this password is also like a simple and normal string. All right, so this is what the data is being fetched from the body, from the request body. Okay, and these particular data, all right, these particular data are then inserted and basically injected, okay, injected into these fields. All right, yeah, the username will go to the username section, the particular password will go to the password section. Okay, now how the SQL injection works here. Okay, what the attacker will do, the hacker slash attacker will do, they will obviously make a post request. Okay, they will make a normal post request. They'll simply just give the username, normal username. Okay, I say for example I am a hacker, and a normal username. But in the password field, okay, in the password field they will add a malicious SQL query. All right, so what happens in this particular query, that okay, insert into users. So in the users in the users table, username and the password field, in respectively, this values will be stored. Like in the username field, this username, whatever the username is coming from the request body, it will get stored. In the password section, this password will store. But what we will do, just analyze this last. Okay, just go on and analyze this last few characters. What we will do, this whole complete section, okay, like whatever the section I'm making blue. Okay, I'm blue. So what I'll do is I'll cover this up. All right, I will cover this up as well, and this is now blue. Okay, you can clearly see that this complete section will be the password, right? So the password might be anything. We just say obviously this is the password. So yeah, so this is the password. After that, we will focus on the other characters. Okay, what the attacker will do, basically in the password field, okay, they will first of all finish this whole, first of all by adding by giving a simple semicolon, they will obviously end this. They'll obviously end this particular current, the previous or the current SQL query. All right, so basically the syntax will be, they will do this. Okay, as you can clearly see, they will take this complete character. Okay, this and this and this. Why I did this? Because see, these two characters, okay, basically the inverted, the particular string, and the parentheses, the closing parentheses. Okay, this backtick, okay, let's just ignore this backtick as well. Okay, let me just draw this up as well. So you have to ignore this backtick. Okay, just ignore this backtick. This backtick is just starting up this particular string, this particular complete string. As you can see, it's being started from here and ending here. Okay, we need to focus on these two characters. Okay, that is obviously the closing string and the closing parentheses. Okay, and we will add up a semicolon here to end the previous query. Okay, and the previous SQL query, and then we'll write our malicious query. That could be anything. Okay, delete, asterisk, or like, yeah, delete from the users. Yeah, this is indeed a very, very dangerous command. Okay, this affects a lot into the database. Okay, after ending the previous query, the attacker will write whatever the SQL query they want. They also can write some SQL, perform some SQL injections in such a way that they could back up all the data. Okay, like they could first write a syntax. Okay, this is a very simple syntax I've written, but they could write some much more syntax, and they could first of all back up all the data from the database into their database. Okay, and then they could delete everything from you. They can threaten you. Okay, ask you some money, like if you want your data back, so you have to pay the max amount. Okay, so yeah, all these hackers, all these attackers can do all these bad things. All right, and then as soon as they hit the post request, normally the insert command will do like whatever the username, whatever the password was. Okay, it will happen, but it will not stop. The way this code is written, what this basically will do, as you can see this particular statement, this is pgc.query. Okay, the PostgreSQL client is basically querying. Okay, it's basically accessing the database, and it is performing this complete query. Okay, so like until and unless the query is not completed, it will not it will not stop. Okay, in this case there are two statements. Okay, the first, this insert will happen, but after that because you have given some malicious, you have basically injected a SQL query into your request. Okay, so that's why this is named as SQL injection. Okay, you have injected a SQL query into your request body. So just after ending this particular previous the actual SQL syntax, the actual SQL query, whatever the query which is coming from that particular request, the server will treat this as obviously as an executable SQL query, and it will execute directly into the database, and all your data will be gone, all your data will be corrupted. Okay, now let's do this practically. All right, let's do this practically. As you can see currently, let me show you guys into by going to the browser as well. Here we have lots and lots of data. Okay, the users data and everything. Okay, now it's time to perform the malicious SQL injection. Okay, now it's time to give it up the data. Okay, so okay, in this case basically we're going to use the double quotes. Okay, first of all, inside the double quotes we'll start giving up the username and all. Okay, yeah, obviously let's give it up the username, and just keep it simple. Okay, I'm not a hacker. Yeah, let's give the username like this, and then the password. As I told you already, that what we will do, we will do this. Okay, we will first of all end the previous SQL query, that is this by ending inverted comma, ending parentheses, and then obviously adding a semicolon to completely end the previous SQL operation. Okay, now we will write our malicious SQL query. Yeah, I'm completely deleting the users from the database. Okay, and ending it, and yeah, there's another best practice that just like what I did, like as you can see what I did, just space and give this two hyphens. Basically what is this in SQL syntax, this is called comments. Basically whatever coming after this, we are commenting this. Okay, see, up till here everything will run, but after this just comment out everything. Everything after that will get commented. Up till here everything will execute. All right, so that's it. It's a little bit tweakings we need to do. Basically we need to basically this is not actually supported exactly in this curl. Basically we need to add some backslashes to support this string here. Before every inverted comma we need to add this backslashes. So yeah, it's pretty simple, no issues in that. And then here. Okay, so now yes guys, we are ready to inject this SQL. Let me again show you. Okay, let me again refresh this, and you can clearly see the data is there. Okay, as we hit enter, yeah, something happened. Let's refresh this and you will be able to see the data is completely gone. So yeah, this is SQL injection. Maybe let's do this via Postman as well. Okay, let me fire up my Postman. Injection .versal.app. Let's let's go for the users endpoint then. Yeah, so the slash users endpoint returning nothing. So this is a post request. All right, into the body we'll give simple, we'll give username. Let's as you can see, something inserted. Let's go on and refresh. Yeah, the data came. Okay, the data insert. Now let's give it up here. Let's first of all, obviously as usual, let's end the statement. Let's write the malicious query, delete asterisk or delete from users. I guess in this case we need nothing. It is internal server error. Maybe let's add the comments and all. And yeah, yes guys, basically there was Postman, so all that backslashes and all we don't need there. It's Postman, it is handling all those formatting and all. So yeah, if you now refresh, the data is gone. This is how guys you do you perform SQL injection, okay, into a vulnerable server. Okay, this complete video was just for educational purposes. Okay, all these things, all this malicious activities, just don't try to do it. Okay, these are not good for you and not good for the the victim as well. Okay, so I hope you liked it, and I hope you understood that how this SQL injection works. I hope you learned something from this video, and if you want such more videos, such more practical videos, do follow, do subscribe, and leave down your thoughts into the comments, whatever you feel, and if any suggestions you want to give me, whatever the topics you want to cover in the next videos. So yeah, I'm happy to listen to them. Okay, and I'm happy to interact. And this side, ShubhDEVs signing off.